Now in today's video, we're going to be taking another look at a budget case, but this time this one wasn't actually really sent to us for any kind of review. This case was sent to us for a different purpose, and we'll get onto that in a future video. But because it is our very first fully white case, I thought why not take a look at it and show you guys what it's all about. So this is the Hellcracks HCS225, and it is a budget case. You can always tell by the name because it doesn't really actually have a name, it just has a case code. And it was sent along to us by Hellcracks just to do some other kind of video content, but I thought why not show you guys what it's all about, because actually the case isn't too bad. It does come at a budget price of around £50 here in the UK, and to be honest, you're getting quite a bit for your money. On the side we do have a tempered glass panel, and what's nice about this one is they've actually given it a white border so it kind of hides all the metal. I really like that. Some budget cases don't actually provide that. Hellcracks tend to for a lot of their cases, even the black ones, but I actually thought that the white one may come without it because they might just put a plain glass panel on there, but they didn't. They actually give you a nice border, and I really like that because it kind of hides that metal shroud and looks really nice. The case is a fully ATX case, so you can get away with putting a full ATX board, a micro ATX or an ITX, whichever one you want to, and it's got plenty of space for components, as you can see with the build that I've put in here. Now the build that I did install in this wasn't really to actually demonstrate much apart from reasonably what you can kind of fit into the case. It is a Z490, so that's a 10th gen Intel with a reasonably short graphics card, and unfortunately I don't have any white parts, so I kind of went with a black on white kind of build. The front panel is a fully mesh panel, so you can kind of see that it's fully mesh all the way up, and it's removable by just simply putting your hand under the bottom and clicking it off. And as you can see, it also comes with dust filtering in the back. Now you can't really remove that dust filtering because it is actually plastic plugged all the way around, but it gives you enough to be able to remove it and give it a bit of a hoover out. But apart from that, there's actually a pretty decent airflow for this because it is a full mesh panel top to bottom. Behind the front panel we do have pre-installed 3 ARGB fans, and we'll get to the fan systems in a minute because they are a little bit weird. On the top we have IO as well as another fan placement. It is a magnetic dust filter that is on the top, and as you can see, you can actually install quite a few fans here. You can install up to two 140mm or two 120mm. Now I doubt you could actually get a 280mm radiator in here because the motherboard is just far too close to the top, but it does give you some options for reasonably big fans. And then when it comes to that front IO, we pretty much have the basics. We have an on and off switch, a couple of LEDs for your hard drive activity and your power, a reset switch, 2 USB 2 ports, a microphone jack, a headphone jack, a USB 3, and an LED switch. Now that'll become important once we start looking at those fans, but it's pretty much the basics of what anybody needs. Unfortunately, there is no USB-C here, but you don't tend to get them on budget cases anyway. On the bottom, we pretty much have a basic layout here. We have a placement where the actual hard drive caddy screws in, and then we have a placement here for the airflow for your PSU, and it does come with a bit of a dust filter. Again, it's very basic. It's just one of these slip-in kind of mat things, but it'll do the job. And then we have some nice feet here just to lift it off so that we can get the airflow under. On the back, it's a pretty typical layout. We have our place for our IO shield here. We have up to 7 PCIe slots, so that will fit a full ATX. The power supply is in the basement at the bottom, so it's ease of access for cabling, and as well as a rear fan here, which will take up to a 120mm fan, and again comes pre-installed just like the front. Now when it comes to hard drive space in this, you can fit up to 2 2.5-inch SSDs. They will actually mount into the front here and here, and then in the basement you do have a little caddy that can take up to 2 3.5-inch drives. So for the basic kind of build, it's got enough there to get people started. Most people nowadays tend to use NVMe drives, and a lot of motherboards do come with them, so you might not need to actually utilize that space, but it is there if you need it. Now when it does come to these fans in this case, there are a few quirks with them. This one particularly came with 6 pre-installed ARGB fans, but they're probably not what you would expect. They do actually power from a single SATA connection, and they all connect together, but one of the fans is what they kind of class as a master fan, which will control all of the others. It will produce ARGB lighting, but you can't override it. You can only get what the fan themselves can actually do, and you control it with that LED button on the top. If you don't have an LED button on the top, but you do have a fan system like this, maybe you take them out of a case like this, you can connect it to your reset switch. It's a very basic connection, and that will actually change the lighting as well. As well as not being able to override the lighting on these fans, you also can't override the speed. There is no motherboard controlling on these fans. They literally will just do one speed. I'm not 100% sure what that speed is. It isn't great, but it does produce a reasonably decent amount of airflow. I kind of suspect that's probably why they fit 6 fans in here, because with all 6, 3 on exhaust, 3 on intake, there is actually quite a bit of air that flows through this case. Is it perfect? Probably not. I probably wouldn't actually stick anything in here that gets too warm. The system that we have in here at the moment is just an Intel 10400, not a very hot CPU, and an AMD Radeon 5500 XT. There is no reason why I actually put that combination together apart from a demonstration really, but neither of them are actually hot parts, so the cooling in this case actually provides enough for these perfectly fine. If you were to go for something bigger, I would highly suggest probably taking out those fans and installing something that can be controlled by a motherboard that can produce much better airflow and adapt to whatever the system is kind of doing. I will admit though, even though the fans are very basic, they do produce some nice lighting. The case looks absolutely gorgeous when it lights up. It is a shame that I did stick on an Intel stock cooler because it kind of shows the build up a little bit, but if you had a nice white tower cooler here that kind of was set up to match the RGB of the case, it would look absolutely cool. Now, one of the main reasons I actually did put a build in here and I wanted to show you guys was what was actually in the back. There's nothing fancy in the back, but I get a lot of people actually say that you can't cable manage in a budget case, particularly cases like this. So I gave myself a challenge and that's exactly what I did. I decided to try and cable manage this case into as good as I could actually get it, and I think I did a decent job. Cases like this don't generally come with much space for cabling, but I actually managed to get it pretty clean indeed. When it comes to the back plate here, where sometimes you can run cables, there isn't that much space at all. There's probably about 5 or 6 millimeters, so you are going to be restricted to kind of flat cabling or at least small cabling. But I managed to actually run cables pretty decent here. We've got the CPU cable just running across the bottom here and up, pretty typical. And then the 24 pin running in the kind of indented groove that they provide here, which looks pretty clean. And then we've got all the cables from the front actually tagged to some other kind of clips all the way down here and nicely tucked away. I think I did a pretty decent job on this. And maybe you are looking at it and thinking, actually, it's pretty simple. There's not that many cables. But what actually is really difficult in this case was actually the cabling for the RGB fans. Now, because each fan actually is just controlled by one, which I believe is this bottom one down here, they actually have to daisy chain to each other and the cables are really long. The fan cable for the fan up here actually can reach pretty much over here. So once you actually put them all together, you have this big bundle of wires that you just can't seem to figure out where to put. But I managed to do it. And some of the tricks to that is actually not running direct. Sometimes you are tempted to actually run the cabling as the shortest distance that you can. But in this case, I didn't actually do that. So for the fans that actually come out the back here, we just run down the back along with the CPU cable underneath so that you can't actually see them and tag them all together, and down into a block where they're actually powered with this little SATA connection. The same for the front ones. We've got a fan in the top here plus the 3 fans at the front. They actually all run into each other, and then I just link the cables together on the longest route that I can, tag what is left at the bottom, and then tuck it underneath as well. I think I've actually done a pretty decent job of the cable management here, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Is this actually a pretty decent cable management job? Is it something that would pass your cable management test? Let me know down there. Now, like I said before, these cases are pretty basic and they offer you pretty much everything that you need. The case is reasonably strong, just like all the Hellcracks cases are. You're just kind of missing out on a lot of the features. There's a lot of screw holes in the case that they don't really provide you anything for. I'm sure there is some kind of upgrade that you can do on these kind of things, or at least install like extra fans and things like that. But apart from that, I think it's a pretty decent case. If you are looking for a budget case out there at the moment, the Hellcracks brand are offering some good deals. You can get this case in black as well, and it looks really nice in black. Well, they do some other design cases that kind of mimic things like the Fractal Torrent. We have looked at one of them before in the past, and they're not bad cases. You can pretty much do a build in them perfectly fine. But that kind of brings us to the end of taking a look at this case. We've shown you the basic features, the types of things that it can fit, and some of its flaws, particularly with the fan systems. I've got some plans for this case going forward to actually help us out with a bit of content, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to catch that kind of stuff. We're going to be looking at doing some kind of guides and things, and I always thought that it's much easier for you to see what we're doing when a case is white and the components are black. Sometimes the black components just blend into the black case and people can't really see what we're actually doing on camera. If you are looking for a budget case, definitely go check them out, and I'm sure as always we'll catch you guys in the next one.